Everything's perfectly all right now. We're fine. We're all fine here now. Thank you. How are you?
Everything is fine here. Today is the day. I am Michael Mudge, and I am here with Detention Block AA23 podcast. And holy crap. I mean, how often do you get to talk about something you love with really close friends to an audience that's just here to listen and also interact? Hopefully, at some point, we get to a position where we can interact with all of our listeners. But through all the waiting, through waiting for equipment, waiting for calendars to align, waiting for just the right time, we are here and we are so excited. And as I mentioned, I am Michael Mudge. I am joined here with two of my friends. We are going to just do a quick little introduction to allow you to step foot into our homes and into our lives. I will start with one of my best friends from God's country, the state of Wisconsin. Big Packer fan he is. Gotta love it. Gregory Allen Van Beck. How's it going, Greg?
It's going good. Going good. If I ever get a little quiet, it's because I do have a 3-month-old sleeping about 4 feet above me. So we're going to be a little quiet on that one. But when she's old enough, we'll introduce her to Star Wars and hope she likes it as much as I do.
Wait a minute. Greg being quiet. I don't think that's necessarily something that really goes together too often. So,
well, babies change you, man.
Maybe the baby is the answer to it all, to keep you quiet.
That's what it is. But it has to be my baby that I don't want to deal with when they're awake. Like if it's your baby, I can just hand them back and we're fine. But yeah, so
if it's my baby, I wonder where this baby is.
That's right. But no, Mikey, very excited to be doing this. When you brought it up a few months ago, I was like, dude, this is gonna be great because we've got the distance where we've known each other since we were 15, 16, something like that. But living states apart, you don't see each other often. So this, being able to see each other, talk Star Wars, have a good time, I'm super excited for it. Like I said, married, got the 3-month-old. So the wife's, allowed me to have a little decent setup in the basement here. Yes. And yeah, I mean, it's perfect. Like you said, I got the Packer helmet behind there. So yeah, big time.
I think Greg's setup and his office basement is probably the best out of all of us. And I am extremely jealous of it.
Yeah, I do what I can. This is oddly enough, like this 7x7 corner is all I have for the house. That's kind of it. But no,
it's your house. It's your little area.
That's right. But no, I'm excited to see where this goes. That's the beauty of Star Wars, which we'll get more into, but just how vast the universe and the galaxy is. There's a ton to touch upon. And I will say this, Mike, you did bring an excellent friend in, someone that, I met through you. He's going to be our third guy in this because every great trilogy requires 3. So everybody, we have Dustin Defranco.
What an intro! I mean,
I should just hand the reins over because I just got mic dropped.
As is with the new Star Wars movies, though, sometimes trilogies aren't the ideal format.
Shots fired early.
I'm so sorry.
Love it. Let's love that.
But my name is Dustin.
The invite to Skywalker Ranch.
Oh. My name is Dustin Defranco, and I'm originally from St. Louis. So you might hear Mudge and I, Michael Mudge. That's his last name. We affectionately call him Mudge. But, we banter on about the Brewers and the Cardinals. And, fortunately, though, for Michael, the St. Louis Rams now became the LA Rams, which allowed me to become a Packers fan. So
welcome. Welcome. Do you feel better? Do you feel cleaner?
Does it feel
feels good to win? It feels good to win. So
you almost ventured to the Vikings route. Aren't you glad you detoured really quickly away from that?
Knowing how miserable the Vikings friends that we have are, yes, absolutely. But so I moved to Minnesota a little over 4 years ago and had the pleasure to move in with Sir Michael Mudge. And learned very, very quickly what a huge Star Wars fan he was, because the walls leading up to his room were just covered in Star Wars posters and props and just we instantly shared our love of Star Wars, and I think it really helped us to become great friends. And like you said, we've been waiting to do this for a really long time, and it's finally here, and I'm ready, Mudge. Let's do it.
It's awesome to see it turn from, text messages that take place between us to a full, all out conversation. Not that the conversations never took place in person, but it's like, it was through text messaging that we were really conversing about Star Wars more than anything else, because, sometimes it's like, do I really need to talk about Star Wars all the time in front of like all my friends and whatnot? So text messaging was something that valid point.
Well, I can say that, I mean, that's something where, when you look, depending on the group of friends, now we've got a great group that would allow, you to just have a good time. Yeah. But in certain settings, you're like, okay, I got to kind of, tone it down just a little, then, this, provides that outlet, that basically this is going to become Mikey's basement of just Star Wars everywhere.
I mean, how many movies did we go to, Mudge, where we were dressed up in full costume to go see premieres of, the Solo movie and,
at least anything that was made since Force Awakens. I feel like at least.
Absolutely. So
I've traveled up to Minnesota for a few of those.
Oh yeah,
we go up there, Mikey. We went, and this is where you marry sports with Star Wars, and they need to do it more. They need to do it more because it parlays. I mean, it pairs up excellently. We went to that Gopher Badger game.
Oh yeah,
dressed up like stormtroopers, and you had the maroon and gold overalls. I had the red and white. That was it. Otherwise, we were like exactly the same. And we were taking pictures. People were coming up. We had the little helmets on.
Oh, yeah.
People were coming up, taking pictures. And I don't know how many pictures it took you, but it took me at least a half a dozen, if not more, to start to question, why am I smiling in this picture? No one can see my face. But it was a ton of them.
No, and you beat me to it. I mean, that's the great thing about Star Wars too, is, you get to dress up if you want to. You get to escape from reality if you want to. You can mix it in with sports or whatever you want to. It's just, there's endless limits to Star Wars. It's definitely a culture. It's definitely a vibe. There's so much to it. And we'll get to specifically what kind of drew us into Star Wars, what made us fall in love with that in a minute. I do want to be able to introduce myself a little bit as well. So I am Michael Mudge. I currently live in Minnesota, in the same state as Dustin does. And I'm a big sports fan, obviously a big Star Wars fan, big movie fan. I'm recently married, just got married this past summer after it being postponed from COVID. I know we've all been impacted by COVID one way or another. And through our wedding was definitely in one way. And literally today, hours ago, my wife and I just put in an offer for a new house. So I am extremely stressed at the moment, at the same time as being completely relaxed by talking about Star Wars. So
nothing is more of a stress reliever than Star Wars.
Exactly.
I'll tell you this too. Mudge had all of his groomsmen put on his 19,000, one of his 19,000 Star Wars helmets that he has, and made for some really awesome wedding photos.
It was pretty awesome.
And God bless his wife for letting him do it.
But what was the trade-off?
The trade-off was, so to a little reference, my wife's name is Colleen, and she is big into like unicorns. She loves unicorns and anything mystical like that. So the deal was for our wedding, we got to have a unicorn drawn carriage that would bring her to the aisle. And I got to incorporate Star Wars by having those helmets. And I got a little extra because we were able to use lightsabers in our entrance dance into the dinner. So
that's a fair trade.
I think I got the one up because I got two things. Granted, she had two horses that had unicorns. So maybe that does even out.
So it's okay that my helmet wasn't movie quality though. Okay, I mean, that's fine.
So I'd be remiss to say that Greg had mentioned his new daughter. My 6-week-old is probably not sleeping 4 feet above me. My poor wife, who is incredible, has just been such an awesome bulwark for being first-time parents. And so I want to give a shout out to her. I got married in June of last year, so right in the middle of kind of a pandemic, just like you did, Mudge. So very awesome. She's allowed me to take this time with such a young child to do this. So it is very cathartic because we love the series so much, the whole universe really. So excited to talk more about it.
Yeah, and I really need to say too, like how much these two guys mean to me. They truly are family. Greg, like he mentioned, I've known him since high school. He's a brother from another mother. We know everything in and out of each other. We are inseparable in so many ways. And then Dustin, he's like the little brother I never had. Living together, sharing the same roof. We really got to know one another. We really got to know so many things that only family get to know. And it's just been an awesome experience knowing both these guys. And trust me when I say they've got a lot to bring to the table when it comes to Star Wars. And they both have their different expertise. And we will kind of jump into that in our later questions. But I kind of want to lead this into what I was mentioning before in our love for Star Wars. And I think for this first podcast, we kind of want to focus on the original trilogy, because for us, it was really the original trilogy that brought us into the world of Star Wars, and really ignited our passion and our love for that topic and all the materials. So when did we first see the movies, and what was that experience like? For myself, it's like one of those moments in time where you're like, I will never forget where I was when that happened. And that's what happened to me. I think I was about 8 years old, and we were traveling to my cabin. So my family has a cabin up in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan. It's been in the family since the 1930s and 40s. It was built by my family, so we always go up there every Thanksgiving. And this particular year, we were staying in a motel not too far out. It's a way for us to kind of stay somewhere, so we're not traveling into my cabin when it's dark, because there's no electricity, no running water and stuff like that. So we usually stay at a hotel the night before, get a shower in and whatnot. But we got to the hotel. My dad and brother were with me, and they were getting ready for bed, and we were all sleeping in our beds, and we turned on the TV, and lo and behold, I guess now it's episode 4, A New Hope, was on TV, and it was just starting. And I looked over to my dad, and I'm like, what is this? He's like, oh, that's Star Wars. And I'm like, oh, well, it seems pretty fascinating, so I'll watch it. And I ended up watching it all the way through the movie. And mind you, it's like at this point midnight. And yeah.
You used the word fascinating as an 8-year-old?
Probably not. I don't think I knew what that term was at 8 years old. But hindsight, now I can use it, I think. Does it make me sound sophisticated?
It did. It really did. But, so I enjoyed it. It's just,
okay.
I could see you there. And this is fascinating. But
maybe those are wrong words. This is cool.
There you go. You're in a motel, 8 years old, in a motel with your dad and brother. New Hope's on.
New Hope's on, watching it, and I'm absolutely falling in love with it. Now, my dad and brother, I'm sure, fell asleep at some point in the movie. And all of a sudden, the credits start rolling, and I just felt like so disappointed that it was over. I'm like, this was such an awesome movie. I love it. I want more of it. Well, to my benefit, and back in the day, like, I just remember, I can picture it. They like split the screen, and it like the credits move over, and then it's like next on TBS or whatever channel it was, and it's like the next episode or next installment of Star Wars, Empire Strikes Back. And I'm like, oh my God, there's more. So I told myself, okay, well, now I have to stay up and watch the next episode. And sure enough, I did. And then sure enough, 3 o'clock in the morning comes, and the same thing happens. Like, I'm so disappointed that, that one was even better than the last one, since Empire Strike is the greatest Star Wars movie of all time. That's just my disclaimer. So the second one ended, I'm like, oh my gosh, I wish there was more. And then sure enough, it cuts to a little square in the screen, and then It says next on TBS or whatever station it was at the time, the third installment, Return of the Jedi. I'm like, oh my God, am I really going to have to stay up again or even longer and watch this? So I started watching it, but I fell asleep. And then the next morning I told my dad, because this is Thanksgiving. We always go up Thanksgiving. I told my dad all I wanted for Christmas were the 3 Star Wars movies so I could finish the trilogy. And sure enough, for Christmas, I got the third one. Because, I mean, again, I was 8 years old. So that was, quite some time ago, not to date myself, but you couldn't watch it on like Netflix or something like that. You had to either go rent it or whatnot. So I just wanted to own it. So I watched it. And then I started collecting like the Micro Machines and like the Legos and the toys. And it got me even more immersed to it. And then like year and a half later, they did the extended, not the extended editions. They edited it, right? They came out with new versions of it. They added in like more CGI. Remastered. That's what I'm looking for. They remastered it. And I got to relive all of the movies in the theaters, which I loved since I didn't originally get to see it in theaters. So that's really what drew me in. It's definitely that moment in time, like I said, that you always know where you were. It's very vivid in my mind, and I will never forget that.
If there's one thing about Michael Mudge that sets him apart from the two of us, is that he is the collector of our group. Some might call it hoarding.
I was going to say, collecting, hoarding. It's a very fine line. Yeah.
And if you could see my screen right now, you would get an idea of what that looks like.
That's just one room.
Yes, that is true. Don't go in our storage closet, because you'll find a lot of things in there, and Colleen will once in a while go in there and be like, is this new?
To which you don't know.
No. She's good at that. But yeah, so Dustin, how about yourself? What brought you to the passion and the love of Star Wars that you have today?
So I got this big smile on my face because I can think about the moment just like you did. So I remember when my twin brother, so I have an identical twin brother. I'm the handsome one of the two of us, of course. But, we had a babysitter when we were probably about the same age as you were, Mike. And so about 8 or 9, and she put on the Star Wars movies for us. And I got to be honest with you, my parents were probably being charged double, maybe triple the rates because, we weren't the best little 8, 9-year-olds, right? So... So this babysitter's like trying to, quiet us down. It's like, oh yeah, I got this, really long trilogy series that you should watch. It's Star Wars. And just like, your moment where they put us on. And you got to remember, I mean, we saw these movies in probably for me, the early 90s.
Yeah.
So I was, 8, 9, they were almost 20 years old. Right. And just how well they stood up, and, just kind of that space opera, right? That's been the big term. And I think Star Wars kind of created that concept, but just such an expansive universe. And, obviously now we can see that with all of the expanded universe and things that they've done with the universe that stemmed from just little moments within the movie, like the Clone Wars, right?
Yeah.
Like that came from one little sentence in A New Hope. And they just turned into this whole freaking thing. So, really, they did such a good job with the universe. If they would have stopped at those 3 movies, who knows how good, it would have been, how much content we'd have to talk about at a podcast. But I just remember sitting there. And, another thing, weirdly enough, this babysitter used to give us hot dogs with like melted cheese on top. Game changer. Just so you know. I remember those 2 things, Star Wars and melted cheese on our hot dogs. So
they should have went to market with that melted cheese on a hot dog back in the 90s. You're probably getting like $10 a pack for those now.
Oh yeah.
So three snacks, and I don't want to go into a detour, but since we're talking about 3 snacks, that one, saltine crackers with peanut butter and jelly, like game changer.
Yep.
So it's like mini PBJs.
Yeah, dude, they were great. They were like little poppable snacks. And then the third one is toast with butter and cinnamon sugar. Like,
done.
Okay, so Colleen would appreciate what I'm about to do here. Can you please rephrase that word you just said? You know what word I'm talking about.
I don't. Toast. Toast. That's
There
it.
you go.
Sorry.
There you go.
True Minnesotan.
Most.
Dustin, when we were living together, would make Colleen say the word toast so much because of the strong accent. But yeah, we can save that for another time because we have another person we want to dive into where their passion came from for Star Wars. Gregory, tell us that story.
My passion is kind of like a fine wine. It's gotten better with age. Like I don't have that specific,
Or good bourbon.
that too. Probably more of bourbon. Yeah, I'll go with bourbon. It's more of the manly. Yeah.
So we were doing some research for this podcast, not to cut you off, Greg, but on one of the little notes was like, oh, it's good to drink something during the podcast, keep your voice loose, and they mentioned bourbon. I was like, check, that's all I need.
Don't have to tell me twice. That's what I got too. A little glass, probably 3 fingers.
I've been prepping for a podcast for 10 years now.
Yeah.
Touche, my friend. Touche, cowboy.
Touche, bro.
But no, yeah. So like I don't, I remember like my dad, my brothers, they're not, big into it. They'll kind of watch it, Star Wars, any of the episodes if it's on, but they're not diving into it to really gain that appreciation. So I don't remember exactly the first time I saw or which episode was the first one that I saw. But for me, it really all kind of started because, the original, was all out before we were born. And that, I think the last one was 83, right. 2 years before. So, every movie was out. And, to Dustin's point, we were born, didn't see it in theaters, saw it 20 years after it came out, and it still stood. It was excellent. But for me, that really kind of grew from like the toys and like the marketing side.
Oh, yeah.
You're getting Han Solo's blaster, or I remember I had the Millennium Falcon that could kind of pop open, and then you'd have like the little mini figurines that you could play in. I had that. The lightsabers, obviously, because who doesn't want to have a lightsaber war in the living room?
Amen.
So that was where, like, as a young kid, that was really where it was it grew from, the toys and, and everything, the blasters and all that. And then it got into the characters and, a smuggler and, then you see Chewbacca and the Ewoks and, you're seeing different things that kind of grab your attention. And then as you get older, you're going, wait a minute, there's more to it than just the little kid, there's, this story and that's, everything that they had. And so that was really where it kind of grew. So, as far as seeing the movies, would have been in Milwaukee because that's where I grew up. But, it really kind of grew as I got older, and you gain that appreciation for just how vast the universe is. And you start to, I've gotten, an imagination that'll just run wild. So
He's
when you're looking at this,
it's fantastic. If you ever need creative ideas, go to Greg. If you're looking for a way to propose to your wife or your future wife, Greg knows the way.
I have planned now 3 proposals. One of them was my own. But yeah, help my
was Mudge one?
Actually, no, it was 4. Both my brothers. I helped with theirs.
You helped with mine.
Mudge was one. Yep. But that's, like, we're not going to go super dark here, but that's kind of like the Vietnam War of proposals. It didn't end well, so I don't like to think of it.
We erased that one.
Yeah, like that's, we're not talking that, but no, it was, I've got that creative mind.
Yeah.
Try to at least, but no, it was when you look at Star Wars, and that's one of the things that I really love. And this is something that we'll probably dive into because it's not original trilogy, which is tonight. But Galaxy's Edge and just getting immersed, because as a kid, that was it. You wanted to get away and live in that galaxy where you had everything that was in Star Wars and the stormtroopers and everything. So that was kind of where the love was that it provided that escape to, I want to go live in that world.
100%. And would you say that we'll say George Lucas and Star Wars original, not necessarily original attention, but one of the big things behind it, the marketing and the merchandise, did they capture you?
Oh yeah. I mean, yeah, obviously. Yeah.
I'm envisioning our trip down to Arkansas where we stop at a Target, literally on the way to see our buddy in Arkansas. We have to stop at a Target because we want blaster rifles, Nerf blaster rifles to go along with our helmets that we're wearing driving down the whole time. Probably completely unsafe, but totally worth it for all the reactions we were getting from all the other cars.
Wasn't even just the blaster. They had that 3-foot BB-8, radio, like the RC BB-8. Yeah, bought that one.
And weren't we getting a gift for their daughter? Our friend that we were going to see, we were getting a gift for their daughter.
That was the whole reason we stopped. Yeah,
and we ended up getting way more stuff than just a gift for the daughter.
Yeah, like we took a detour and it was fabulous. But that's what it does. It brings you in, and whether it's the merchandise or as we'll dive into. I mean, there's the comics and there's the video game, different marketing and everything they do. The movies, there is something for everybody, and that's what's awesome about the saga, the galaxy, Star Wars.
And you mentioned toys. You mentioned toys, Greg. What really captured me after the original trilogy were the video games. So Shadow of the Empire on N64, just insanely great game for the time, right? And then Knights of the Old Republic. I mean, that is just such an incredible video game, and they're remastering it very soon. So I'm super excited to see how that plays out. I never actually played the Old Republic, which is just MMO. Kind of regret that.
My brother played that. I never played it either.
But the video games for me, that's my passion, is the video games.
How do you feel about on Shadows of the Empire? What is it, the Slave 1 level?
That was one of the, you just, as a kid, you're just like, oh my God, I am playing a video game. I'm this character fighting. I think it was Jango Fett, or was it Boba at the time?
I think it was Boba. I think it was Boba.
And Slave 1 flies in to this really cool arena, and you have to fight him. I spent my time running around that arena, trying not to get killed. So
the other thing you did was it pushing the
rock monsters? My brother and I found a way to push them off the ledge. And then once you got the jetpack, you could go fly down there and taunt them. It was hilarious.
I wish I knew you at that time, because I had such a hard time with that would be very useful advice to get through that level.
Yeah, we would this is a video game term, we would kite them, right? So we would lure them because they were very slow, and we would get them to the edge and then go around them and then push them, and they would drop like a rock. And
nice play on words there. But
the great thing is, once you got the jetpack later in that level, you could go down into these crevices and just taunt the crap out of these things.
For sure,
it's very rewarding.
I love the piloting levels. Crazy. So like the snow speeder, and then the space battle. Well, no, there were 2 space battles, weren't there? There was one in the middle too, where you just shot down TIE fighters, and then you got to fly through the little. It was kind of like blowing up the Death Star, but it's not the Death Star. It's another fortress.
It was like the Forge something, right? Yeah. Or maybe that was KOTOR. But I don't want to spend too much time on it, because I do think we want to focus on the original trilogies, and we will do a entire podcast on the video games, I'm sure. But that's really where I could talk all day about the video games.
Sure.
And you probably.
So going back to the original trilogy movies themselves, Greg, I know you mentioned it wasn't necessarily the movies that originally captured you, even though you enjoyed the movies. But with the movies, what sticks out to you this day? Like, when you're recalling when you were first seeing the movies, what is it that kind of brings you back?
Oh, there's, in A New Hope, one of the things that really it grabbed you was, part of it was, blue milk. There wasn't that one. You had the one scene, but when you're 8, 9 years old, you're I love chocolate milk. I gotta love this blue milk too.
That scene gets ruined in The Last Jedi.
Oh, I know.
Just saying.
Isn't it
I know.
green milk at that point?
Spoiler alert.
Yeah. If you haven't seen any of the movies, fast forward past that scene. But no, it was I mean, you had the all of Empire Strikes Back. I mean, that's just one big moment unto itself.
For sure.
But yeah. No, I mean it was God, I'm trying to I mean, the blowing up of the, I mean, the first Death Star getting blown up.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or, the, one of the scenes that really kind of got, was, the Emperor when, they're thinking that they've really got him over a barrel and he goes, oh, it's fully operational. And you're like, oh, you son of a, unbelievable. He played the long game and he won. Like, great. Like, I mean, as a kid, when you see that, you're like, there is no, they gave it their all.
It's a trap.
I mean, it was their best shot. And and it just, so I think like that one, when you looked, I mean, it was, like the hatred that you felt for the Emperor at that time, right then, you were like, okay, now this guy's got to go. And I think that moment sucked you in. And then, the cantina scene, I mean, that's, the music, I think it's, my cell phone, it's got, where someone calls it and you'll hear, you'll hear the sound.
Play that same song.
Play that same song.
Right?
Family Guy reference.
But I mean, that's, some of those, scenes, that kind of grab you and you don't really know why at the time, but
yeah.
Awesome.
How about yourself, Dustin?
So mine is the Battle of Hoth.
That's such a cool scene.
Which I know, I mean, obviously I could go through all those scenes in the first movie that really grabbed me, but that one just by far is so incredible where you're introduced to the AT-ATs and how like overpowering they are to the rebels. But then you have these really cool, unique craft in the, I forget the names, the snow speeders, I think they were.
Yeah.
And, they got these harpoons that, wrangle these freaking things like cattle. And just what an awesome set piece that scene is. And then you get to play that in Shadow of the Empire.
Yes.
Which just adds to it, so, and again, introduced to Star Wars around the same time those video games would have came out. So they happened very close to each other. And it's just what an awesome battle, a space battle that really, again, still holds up to this day graphically.
For sure.
And Star Wars was a pioneer in that. And
yeah, for sure.
I think that's one of the big things about Star Wars is when you look, it's funny that, the first 3 episodes. So the second trilogy, if you want to, do that, those, they had more of the, visual effects, but the original, you'll watch the originals over that. Part of it's storyline. The other part is the effects that they had, with the stop motion animate. It was like, this is fantastic. They were doing the best they could with what they had at that time. And you're going, this is amazing. 40 years later, it's holding up.
Well, and that's a great point, because to that point, and I won't dive too far into it because we'll have other questions we want to get to, but it's almost as if, because with episode 1, 2, and 3, it's almost like they overdid the technology a little bit. Like it was almost too much CGI. So it seems that in a time that they had less technology with the original trilogy, it's almost, dare I say, more bearable to watch in terms of visual effects than it was with the prequel trilogy because of all the CGI. And again, we can dive into that deeper, but I think that's a fascinating point. Which,
sure, we'll have a podcast about the first 3 episodes.
Which, to your point, Greg, the original trilogy, it holds the test of time with being able to watch it. It's just so good. Like, at least in my opinion, it's light years, play on words there, you like that, above the rest, no matter how much better the technology might have been in the sequel trilogy or whatnot. It's just the original trilogy is what always stands out, in my opinion. But diving into a single particular moment within the original trilogy for myself and what sticks out to me, I'm going to take kind of a little different little bit of a different lane on this, not necessarily a scene. I think one thing that is not necessarily underrated, but doesn't get talked about as much with the Star Wars movies is the music. John Williams is a mastermind, and he is amazing at his craft. And I really feel like it's the music that really pulled me into Star Wars, because you can have a scene, but then when you add music to it, it really makes you feel something more than what you're actually seeing. And for me watching it, it was that scene, that binary sunset scene with Luke Skywalker. He's thinking to himself, he's never going to escape the world that he lives in and become who and what he wants to be. And he wants to go and he wants to, join and be a pilot and fight the fight that they're fighting. And just that music that takes place, it's that binary sunset song as he's kind of walking up that sandhill and kind of kicking the dust. Like, it really connects. It really connects to you. And it really connected to me, because coming from a person who moved around from state to state quite a bit growing up, like, I always just wanted to find who I was and kind of escape the reality of things. And that scene just stuck out to me, and it will forever be, cemented in my mind how I felt the first time I saw that specific scene.
Star Wars, not drugs.
Well, I think, and to that point, to this day, you hear the Imperial March.
Oh yeah.
It just right away.
And it's three notes. It's three notes that is that powerful.
But when that, when that came out, you were like, oh boy. And then all of a sudden there's Vader. You're like, all right, well, something's going to happen and it's going to be awesome. So, but yeah, like you had said, it elicits that emotion right away. Yeah.
100%.
I think, to your point, if you just take the Star Wars soundtrack and just put on a, headset and just listen to it, you can visually see the entire movie through the soundtrack. And when that happens, you have something good.
John Williams is the MVP to the Star Wars saga, trilogy, whatever you want to call it. In my opinion, he is what took Star Wars to the next level. Of course, you need the mastermind of George Lucas to come up with this idea, but the extra sugar coating that John Williams was able to sprinkle on it allowed for a lasting memory, I feel like.
And I think George Lucas knew the importance of that soundtrack and the music behind the scenes. And so give credit to him too, because a lot of times movies let soundtracks go by the wayside, and you can tell. Yep.
No, that's absolutely correct.
And at its core, when it first came out, it was that sci-fi movie, and you weren't really sure the sci-fi genre. Star Wars created, they built it up into, what became now a massive, genre with everything else out there. But without that music, I think it's a, sci-fi, movie, a Sharknado, basically.
Yeah, almost might be corny.
Yeah.
Well, even George Lucas was worried about the success of it, because him and I believe, fact check me if you want, but Steven Spielberg.
Spielberg?
Yeah. George Lucas took a bet with Steven Spielberg. George Lucas said, I'm spacing on the movie right now.
Close
Encounters of the Third Kind would do better than his own Star Wars. Steven Spielberg took that bet, and I think there was some kind of wager of like a percentage of the profits.
Yeah. Spielberg still makes money off of Star Wars.
I believe that's correct. Mm-hmm. That is amazing. Like, I love that little factoid. So yeah, let this lead into going from our favorite moment into Star Wars to who is our favorite Star Wars character from the original saga. I don't know if it's whether you can relate to them the most or you just thought they were that badass, but who is that character that really stands out or you would classify as your favorite? We'll start with you, Greg.
Well, I brought this up, before to you, but, I want to say Will Hood, but
Credit where credit's due, right?
What was he carrying? Why was it so important? I want answers. Somebody. And this is something that'll connect to the future. But was what he was carrying connected in any way to the Mandalorian? No, I want answers, but I'm sure you want answers too. So to answer your question, it's hands down and I'm not alone in it. I know it's nobody, hidden. Han Solo. When I look at the original trilogy, Han Solo, he's the best guy. All respect to the Skywalker family. You're great. Without you, there's no Saga. But Han Solo's awesome.
You got to have that swagger, that comic relief that Harrison Ford brings into Han Solo from the original trilogy.
Oh yeah, you have to. And who else is gonna be able to understand Chewie? Nobody really.
Touché.
And that would have been a very, very short movie without Han Solo. Luke wouldn't have gotten off Tatooine.
And
there, I said it. It's taken me 20 some years, but I said it. All right. Whole movie is Han Solo. He doesn't get enough credit. They need to come out with Solo 2. Someone at Disney, make it happen.
Hey, I think they're looking into a series for it. And I think there's a Lando series also, which will play a part in that. I think, from what I hear.
From your sources?
From my sources. I dare
That's the same as Schefter's sources?
I do have a dad that's in the CIA, so I have certain connections and sources that other people are not privy to.
I forget the quote, but it's just the quote where many of these died for this information. It was leading up to Rogue.
Many
Rogue
Bothans have died.
Bothans, that's it. I knew you were new in Mudge, so
I got you covered. Don't worry about it.
So that's the great thing about this podcast. We got three of us that know a lot, so when we forget, someone remembers. But yeah, it's kind of like that. Your sources, many Bothans died for this info.
Which this is perfect because this leads into Dustin's favorite character, which I know are the Bothans. So please explain to it. No, I'm
well, the Bothans are the reason why we have Rogue One, right?
Right. Well,
that little quote brought a whole freaking movie.
Here is a skill that we should talk about for Dustin really quickly. He is quite the salesman. So if I'm prompting him with such a thing, he will make you believe in any way that truly is his favorite character, the Bothans. He is so good at that.
It's like, let me sell you this pen.
Exactly. He could sell a ketchup popsicle to a woman in a white dress, no problem. But for real.
Well, is it a hot day? Otherwise the popsicle's not going to melt, and maybe she really likes the taste of ketchup. What?
You never know.
Paint the picture here, man.
I'm sorry, I'm not as creative as you.
If you're not going to paint the picture, at least get some John Williams music playing, and then you got my attention.
I'm sure I could get that at my fingertips.
I'm sure you could.
So Dustin, reveal who your favorite character is.
I'm cheap, and I'm going to say characters, and it's the villains in Star Wars.
No, that's it's totally fair.
Because villains make movies great, and I kind of know what your answer is going to be, Mudge. I have a feeling, right? But Palpatine, like every scene he's in, he steals that scene, and you know how powerful he is. And like if you look at the scenes that he's in, the set pieces, he's got all those guards around him. And by the way, how badass were the Praetorian guards? Throughout the entire.
I lost my Micro Machine version of one of them, and I couldn't sleep for a week. I was so mad.
If I were to cosplay, it would be the Praetorian guards from either the original series or the Last Jedi in that one scene with Kylo and Rey.
Would you be able to be quiet enough at a Star Wars event to be one of those guards?
Absolutely not. So
no, which we should
you'd have to tape my mouth shut.
Which I may mention that keeping Greg quiet is really tough to do. The same goes for Dustin. He is also quite the talker, and keeping him quiet is
perfect skill for a podcast.
Of course,
but but you think about Boba Fett, right? What a great villain, right? Great. And kind of a minor villain. I think he maybe had a couple scenes in the movies, but. Again, the villains are just so good, and they make the movie and they make it compelling to watch because you're rooting against them, but you're also like, man, these guys are badass.
Yeah.
I think the thing that makes Boba so good, though, is like how badass he is and the fact that you only just, graze the surface with him. You've wanted more Boba forever.
Since day one.
Forever.
Finally getting it.
right?
Yeah.
Oh
Yeah,
my
it's, you know,
gosh.
yeah. I mean, it's
Well-
taken forever, but I mean, well, you brought up, Slave One. I mean, you're 8, 9 years old, a video game. You look at, Slave One comes in, you start marking out, on a video game because oh man, there it is.
And then,
And that's it. And I think that, Dustin, to your point, like that or those villains, when they're on screen, your eyes are glued to the screen.
oh yeah. And then you watch Mandalorian how many years after since you originally saw Slave One, either through the movies or through the video games, and then you get to see it live in not live, but in action again through the Mandalorian. Like that feeling you have is just like, oh my God, I'm actually living this moment again. It's fantastic. And I think there's really something to be said about mystery in characters. And I think that's one thing that Boba Fett brought. There were so many unknowns. There were so many questions that people had about who this character is and, why is he there? And, how is he at the level of Darth Vader is talking to him one-on-one, like no discrimination this time. Like they're on a personal level. He knows who this guy is, but you don't know barely anything about him. Yet he becomes one of the most favorite and iconic characters from the original trilogy, yet he has minimal screen time. So no, I think that's totally to your point, Dustin, about the villains and how they can definitely make the movies.
Absolutely.
My answer is a little more boring, I feel like, and a little more cliche.
I know it.
I mean, only because of the impact.
Which Ewok is it? Which Ewok is
Wicket.
it?
I'm gonna guess. I'm gonna say it
Everyone
rhymes
picks Wicket.
with Larth Jaber. That's not a very good rhyme. I was trying to be a little more creative, like Greg.
Ooh, you might be wrong. You might be wrong, Dustin.
Okay, maybe it's.
I've already mentioned this character.
Is it the stormtrooper that bonks his head?
Oh my gosh, that's so great.
The headbutt stormtrooper.
And now that they enhance the audio from that scene.
Talk about a character not getting enough screen time. You want to know the backstory? Like, what's going on?
Well, believe it or not, there is now a backstory to that character.
Well, of course, yeah.
Is it Greedo?
No, it's not Greedo. Han shot first.
Is it definitely?
No, I have to say it's Luke Skywalker.
Okay. I thought it was going to be Darth Vader for sure.
Yeah.
No. Mikey's always going to. Mikey appreciates Vader.
Yeah.
He respects him,
but
he's always going to go to the good side. Mikey's always going to go Jedi.
True. That's fair. I mean, Vader is definitely probably the most interesting character and the most fascinating character in all of Star Wars original trilogy.
He's another one though that doesn't get a lot of screen. Like when you look back, he does not have a ton of screen time.
It's 13 minutes of screen time.
Yeah,
in the original trilogy, that is not a lot.
But every time he was on, you're like, oh man. And part of that is James Earl Jones.
Absolutely.
I mean, that guy,
oh my gosh, great. I mean, they couldn't find a better voiceover for him than James Earl Jones.
No, I mean, not at that time. Now maybe Morgan Freeman or,
Can you imagine Morgan Freeman doing the voice of Darth Vader? I mean, I feel like you would get some like Shawshank Redemption, like, it's some back voice that's doing it while Vader is talking. I don't know. I'm just envisioning.
It'd be different, yeah. But you get that real deep bass baritone.
Get busy joining the dark side or get busy dying.
Exactly. That's exactly what I'm thinking. But Luke Skywalker, like I told you, like he brought that escape element to me. Like I really connected to him. He wanted to get out of the setting that he was. He didn't know how to and didn't know if it would ever come. I mean, I remember when I lived in Texas and I would be sitting on the float of my pool. Well, we had like floaties and I was in my pool laying on the floaty, just looking up to the stars, just acting like thinking I was Luke Skywalker looking up at the binary sunset, just looking off into the distance. And I don't know, it's just his character, though in the first, A New Hope, his character can be a little annoying at times.
A little
whiny. I will say that. That's no knock on Mark Hamill at all. Mark Hamill is one of my favorite actors of all time. I think this can be for another discussion, but the script writing wasn't necessarily always the best in everything. But
what I'm saying is, without John Williams, when you look at script and everything, you're borderline your standard hokey sci-fi movie
Yep.
and but no, I think Mark Hamill did the best he could with what he had.
Yep.
And you see now, I mean, it's well worth it.
Well, and Mark Hamill continues to progress the Star Wars universe. I mean, he is so active in the Star Wars culture, and he is so vocal in it, and he's absolutely amazing. I love that guy. And his character, Luke Skywalker, is just, I connected so much with him. I wanted to be him. I wanted to be an X-Wing pilot. I wanted to be the one that saved the day by killing millions of workers in a Death Star. No, not that specifically, but I always wanted to be that guy.
You wanted to shoot womp rats?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so I would have to say Luke Skywalker for me, but I mean, I could list, so many different number of characters that I absolutely love. So on to the next question, which we've kind of touched on it one way or another. For instance, with Dustin and the video games, but what other Star Wars content do you enjoy? And I will bring that back to Dustin. I know, like I said, the video games is one thing, but what all do you enjoy outside of the movies themselves?
So one thing I got into probably because of you, Mudge, is the books.
Yeah.
And
so good.
Unfortunately, years ago, they did that thing where they took a lot of that stuff and took it out of the universe and put it in the expanded universe or whatever, category they wanted to throw it in. But, reading the Revan books, oh, man. I mean, I love that character in KOTOR. What a cool character. But, now just even the most recent are the High Republic books that they just released. And, excited to read those because, hey, that might be the next cinematic universe they get into.
Yeah.
And I got to say, I hope they do because there's a lot of cool stuff. And, a lot of these books you can read in a couple weeks, Mudge, a couple decades.
Yeah, it takes me a little longer. Dustin can read a book so fast, probably within a couple of days, at most in a week if he wanted to. For me, it takes sometimes months. Now, I did go on a streak where I did read those High Republic books.
Very proud of you.
All of them within probably a couple of weeks. So that was probably a milestone in my reading capability.
I did skip the YA books. I didn't read those.
I read those.
So, yeah, I'll give you credit where credit's due. But like the Thrawn books, oh my God!
Yeah.
Like
I did read the first one. That one's really good.
I mean, probably one of my favorite characters in the entire universe, and they do him such good justice in the book. So I would say the books would be my next favorite. And I will mention to the Family Guy Star Wars 3 episodes.
Dustin loves not just
fantastic.
To quote it. They are amazing. I've been
Shut up, Meg.
I have been waiting for so long for them to do the prequel and the sequel. I feel like Family Guy just looks at the prequel and series.
It's too easy.
It's too easy. There's too much that we can do that we're not even going to bother with it. But those, I mean, the Family Guy episode.
Who just leaves a good couch? Are you serious?
I'm taking
this couch.
I'm taking it.
I feel like they answer so many
questions. Ma, we won the battle. Yeah, Ma.
I feel like they
what
answer
are
so
you
many
doing?
questions.
You are driving.
They answer so many questions that you had watching the original trilogy. I know, Greg, you and I were talking about this just the other day. Like, there's a scene where on the Death Star where there's those two Imperials that are like standing right as the laser's shooting by. There's no rail or no anything. There's no door. So it's like, how the heck did they get there? And they're talking about like, oh yeah, they don't want to install a rail because they're afraid we would lean.
You got time to lean, you got time to clean.
But yeah, such great material. And based off of what you said, Dustin, because you were talking about how you love like the Legends material and going into the expanded universe. If it were up to you, and I know the answer to this, would you erase the line that says this is canon and this is legend?
Yes. Why? Why would you cut it off? I don't understand.
I agree.
You have this great content and it's not doing any harm. I mean, you could retcon some of the stuff they already have. So
there you go. The Marvel universe into the multiverse
God.
scenario.
Yeah, you have just incredible content. I mean, I don't know if they consider the Bane trilogy as a part of the expanded universe.
I know
I think they have to.
Bane is canon because I
Yeah.
think he's in the Clone Wars, but I don't know if necessarily those books as a material are canon, but Bane as a character is.
Or Plagueis. Have I ever told you about the tragic?
That's a
story
good
of
book.
Plagueis
That's
the
such a good
Wise?
book.
But
I read
then,
that
but
one.
like
Dustin.
you know, they kind of retcon that in the movies because you know he didn't die that way. Spoiler alert! But
right.
You know they talk about how
What?
he was killed off. Huh?
Spoiler.
So, but anyway, continue, Mudge. You're doing a great job.
What about you, Greg? What other content? I know you kind of tapped on the merchandise and everything. So maybe you elaborate more on that, or what other content do you really enjoy with Star Wars?
Well, you got, I mean, there's the merchandise, and then, the Disney Plus, the fact that, they, got brought in, and, so you have the original content on there, and then they brought back, I mean, you could see, like Ewoks, and they brought some like the really old like cartoons in that.
Oh yeah.
And, but so it's that type of deal, because for me, you had the sagas, you had the trilogies, but like Dustin had kind of touched upon with like the legends, and there's such a vast universe that it just opens your eyes, and you're like, oh, I want this story, I want that story. Like there's there are more characters than just in the Skywalker saga, and I want to meet them. And
Quinlan Voss, that dude would be so awesome to get a drink with.
Oh yeah.
Just saying.
Absolutely.
But one of the other things is Galaxy's Edge. I was able to make my way down there 2.5 years ago, something like that.
And you're the only one of us that has been there. And
the Orlando location.
Jealous.
Oh, you should be. You should be.
I have a question. Would you sell your baby to go to the new Star Wars like cruise ship?
I can see Greg's facial expressions cringing right now because he wants to say one thing, but
No. I would, but I don't own the baby. The wife does, so I can't sell it.
Would you lease the baby? Would you lease it? Maybe like a rent to own kind of deal?
I would love to try, but yeah, it'd be like me trying to sell the Brooklyn Bridge. Like I could do it, fine. Someone's gonna buy it, but
I'll sell your baby for you.
Well, I have to do this, and I know our listeners are not necessarily seeing the visuals behind this. Hopefully, at some point, we'll be able to do that. But Greg, you showed me something the other day that you have that I am so jealous of from Galaxy's Edge. Do you have that by you? Can you show Dustin?
I do, but I lost like the top part of it somewhere. I don't know, but
well,
you might hear banging on the table.
So here you can, I lost the little connector piece. I don't know where it went to.
But really quickly,
that's so cool.
But really quickly, tell our listeners what you were telling me about the situation with the airport.
Found it. Update alert. Found it. Yeah.
So much better. You are getting live, up-to-date news. Greg just found the cap to his thermal detonator Sprite.
Well, what other Star Wars podcast you need to get this kind of content, guys?
Right?
Yeah, I mean, without the cap, it's just a Sprite bottle.
So really quickly, in 30 seconds or less, talk about the airport situation and how you lucked out.
Oh, well, because Dustin, I don't know if you noticed, but when they first opened up Galaxy's Edge, they were selling those bottles, and you couldn't take it on a flight. Like, even if it was empty, because of what it looked like,
I could see that.
You couldn't do it. So after a little bit, like TSA is getting all these complaints from people that are flying, down to Florida or, out to California, and they're like, I spent $6 on this bottle because it's a souvenir, and that, like, I want to take it. And so they finally, approved it. And I think that was November of 2019 was when they said, we understand it's basically a souvenir from Disneyland or Disney World. You can bring it, you just have to, as far as my understanding, you can pack it away and, but if it's in a carry-on, it has to be empty because it's still the liquid and that, which is fine because, who cares? Like, I see it. I don't need stale Sprite in there. I'll drink the Sprite. Like, I'm thirsty. You ever been down to Florida? We went in December and it was still 80 some degrees. Now I was comfortable, but it was warm. So yeah, I want the liquid. I just need the empty bottle because it's awesome. But so we were able to go. Yeah, I was able to take it because I was like, okay, good. Thanks. Airport's being, this is not a bomb.
Well, nothing really tells the power that Disney has more than they can adjust TSA's regulations for flights on airplanes to allow Sprite bottles that look like thermal detonators onto planes. So that is absolutely fantastic. So that question for myself in terms of other content, I think for me, it encompasses both of what both Dustin and Greg said. I mean,
Funko Pops.
Well, yeah, if you could see, I've got a whole rack of different Funko Pops. Greg's big in Funko Pops. If you could see his screen, you would see a few of them right there. But I also have a bunch in bins.
Yeah, you see my dinner too, possibly.
Oh, what are you having?
It's like chicken, beans, taters.
Oh,
Yeah, I'm gonna edit this out.
The wife ran it down.
Oh, that lucky. But yeah, the books, the merchandise, obviously. The only other thing I would probably add is I also enjoy the comics of it. They're not all of them are necessarily canon, like the Dark Horse ones or whatnot. But I have so many different comics that I love reading. And one of the most interesting characters from the comics that has no screenplay or no recognition anywhere is Dr. Aphra. And that is such an amazing character connected with Darth Vader. Kind of, it's like a good character and a bad character at different times, pulled different directions. But the comics bring in just another element, allows you to dive deeper into specific characters if you want, like Kanan Jarrus. There's a whole line on him. Mace Windu. There's even a Chewbacca comic book line, and it's like it's awesome to gain more information about the characters you love and ones you don't even really know much about. And if you know me, I will take any Star Wars content that I can get. Just bring me more. I will, read it, even though if it takes me a few months, Dustin. I will
a few years, really.
I was gonna say, what other Star Wars content do you enjoy? Mike's answer: all of it. Next question.
That simple, all of it. Whatever you can give me.
You slap a Star Wars label on it, I'm gobbling it up.
Even the holiday special, even how terrible.
Oh
it is.
no!
Wow.
I remember when you showed that to me, Mudge. I wanted to leave. I just was like, I'm out. I'm breaking my lease.
We couldn't go one podcast episode without bringing up the holiday special of the Star Wars, which they did another holiday special, but it was a Lego edition, which was good. It was good. But yeah, that original one, like, how awesomely terrible was it?
True to form for just three huge Star Wars nerds is the only thing maybe Star Wars content wise that we've left on the table are the Star Wars dinner plates. You're welcome, listeners. Pun intended.
Yes, very much so. And the glasses.
The Burger King.
You have some of those?
I have 4 of the Burger King glasses.
Breaking news. Breaking news on the detention block A23.
Oh my gosh. We look at this.
Yeah. 3 of them from
live news updates. I didn't know this.
Yeah, Empire Strikes. Look at that one. And that beauty.
Fact. Colleen's mom found a box in her basement that had those same glasses in it and gave it to me. And I was so excited. I just finding out that you have these glasses too. This is
now I need a set.
Yes.
I don't have. This is all just random stuff. My mom just found it somewhere. She bought it and she goes, all right, here you go.
Oh my gosh. I'm just energized through you just
down
sharing
here?
that.
Is that down here?
What are you looking for?
Let's see if my aunt, my godmother, because I still got one of those.
More merchandise?
Yeah, this one actually was really cool. I haven't really found, I don't have enough nails to put it up there, but a clock made out of a record.
Oh. Oh, and I see stormtroopers on there and Darth Vader. Oh,
yeah, like that was it. Like, I mean, it was like the coolest thing. So yeah, I got to figure out a spot to.
I'm going to end this with one question. Why is that not already on your wall? The answer for my wall is because there's not enough space because there's already.
That's 100% true.
But why is it not on your?
You start hanging it down from the ceiling, you know.
Well, you see my.
If you see look at the ceiling, I'm going to adjust my camera. You can see things already hanging from the ceiling.
Sure can. I knew about that.
You see, Mike, for me, the last year and a half's been a whirl, you know, so like moved into the house, but then like a week after moving into the house, found out, hey, you're going to have a kid. So all of a sudden it's no longer about hanging up my stuff and that finding space or any of that. It's, well, we got to get this ready and that ready. And apparently other stuff, who knows? I don't run my life anymore.
You never did.
I had a good 3-month stretch where I was in charge.
Well, that's good. So you can hang your hat on that.
That's right.
All right. So I know we kind of got to wrap this up a little bit. So just moving into our closing thoughts on the original trilogy. Again, in future episodes, we'll tap into more than just the original trilogy because all material is great. But where does the original trilogy stand in pulp culture for the area? I know we kind of talked about this a little bit, and that the original trilogy like stands the test of time. But where does it compare to other movie franchises or trilogies like Alien, Star Trek, Lord of the Rings, Terminator? I mean, where do you put this in that spectrum? Greg, do you want to start us off with that?
Well, I think, where it stands as far, I mean, that's, there are different, ways in which you can kind of look at that, sentence or question, because I think when you look at like fan involvement, you're not getting too many like Terminator, like cosplay and that, but true. So I think, Terminator itself is great, but I think, the Star Wars, where they take it, where people want to be in that universe. Lord of the Rings is probably close. Otherwise, it's not a trilogy, but I think Harry Potter is probably the only franchise that would come close to Star Wars as far as people wanting to be a character within that, franchise.
Yeah.
Like people, they all, you see it all over, oh, I'm just waiting for my letter from Harry Potter, or Hogwarts, to go to school with Harry. It's like, so you have that. Now, as far as where it stands in pop culture, so Star Wars is the bell cow. It's the top, and then everything else kind of, because it's the merchandising, nothing touches it. When you look and see how often it's on TNT or TBS, right now Rogue One is on, and it just followed Solo. So there's Star Wars right there. Mm-hmm. That's where, for me, where it stands out in pop culture is it is a giant unto itself. It's a franchise that all other franchises hope to become, because the music, you could go watch an orchestra just play Star Wars soundtracks, and I guarantee that you would have as much enjoyment. The orchestra crowd, the people that go, to that, all the time, they would probably have as much enjoyment listening to a John Williams soundtrack from a Star Wars movie as they would Bach or Beethoven or any other. Those are the only two names that I really know. I think Mozart too, but beyond that, unless you were named
to all
after
your music majors out there.
Well, get some turtles named after you, and then maybe I'll remember a little bit more. But no,
different universe. Okay.
But I think that's when you look at the original trilogy and the fact, how long it has stood the test of time. It's every day. It's August 9th, 2021. And I guarantee you someone just watched A New Hope for the first time and fell in love with it and is now working on a collection or hoarding, a collection. Yeah.
Me.
That will rival you, Mike. That's just every day. It's what it is. When you look and see, Galaxy's Edge, when it first opened and you had to get a wristband you were only allowed in that area for 3 hours, I think, something like that. It was a set amount of time. And now part of me, I wanted to go at that time because when you went over your time limit, stormtroopers escorted you out. Like, I want that. That's just a picture,
so cool.
you know. But now that's where the original trilogy built this behemoth, and nothing touches it. So, I mean, as far as movies, entertainment, you can kind of get, close to the same entertainment. Maybe not same entertainment, but you can get some good entertainment from the other trilogies. But everything, when you take it all in as one massive, entity, nothing touches Star Wars.
Yeah, and I think you bring up a good point with Harry Potter universe as well, because when you said that, it made me think, at least top of mind, that's probably the only other franchise that actually has like an amusement park world that you can go to, because you can go to Hogwarts outside of Star Wars. So I thought that was a great connection, because I love Harry Potter. I think that's a great universe as well, but I didn't even have that on my list, but I'm glad you brought that up because that's a great comparison. Dustin, how about yourself?
Well, I'll nerd out for Harry Potter too. So
I've been Harry Potter.
I've been there too. I was at Universal down in Orlando, and went there. So yep. I mean, that's a fun one too, but it doesn't touch Star Wars.
Right. Agreed. Dustin.
Yeah, I'm going to keep this short and simple. And I think all you need to know is there's a reason Disney paid $11 bajillion to acquire the Star Wars franchise, and he never once said, "Oh, that was a terrible idea." They made terrible. I'm going to spoil maybe future episodes. They made terrible, movies. And there were some good moments, obviously, but in the Skywalker ending saga, and people flocked to see those, and we were just so starved to see other movies. And I am very excited to see what they can do with the rest of the franchise. Obviously, with what they did with Mandalorian, bringing Ahsoka to life. We're going to have probably a whole podcast on that. Again, I'm mentioning all the future podcasts we can have because there's just so much content and so much things we're passionate to talk about. And I hope our listeners want to enjoy that too. And again, I know you mentioned being interactive. So as you kind of close this podcast, talk about some of the things we'll be doing there. But that's all I got to say. It's number one by a wide margin. There's been some great, franchises like Alien. I am so passionate about that franchise.
Oh, yeah,
the things it did to me when I was a kid, I couldn't sleep for weeks after my dad showed that movie to me, way too young. And still playing the video games now, like Isolation. Oh my God. No way am I playing that with the lights out. And just some of the things they did with the franchise, unfortunately, very similar in the vein, where they took a really great property and kind of, killed it a little bit. But, just number one by far. And look at all the things it's done and what it's inspired people to do. And it's just, you talk about something that George Lucas created, and maybe he never even thought as well as dreams he would come up with this, but just bar none, the best thing ever.
For sure. And to spare repeating what either Greg or Dustin has said, like, I echo everything that they mentioned. The only thing I would necessarily add to it is Star Wars is probably the only movie franchise that I know of that would have a whole college course designated to learning the mythology of Star Wars. It's just fascinating that such a franchise can expand into the centers of knowledge that we're expanding upon young people going through school. It's amazing.
Did you double master in that course?
It was an anthropology course, and because it was mythology related, and I double majored in history and anthropology. So yes. And I think going into our closing segment, I will hand the baton over to Dustin on this, because I feel like this is his little baby. He's been really excited and very passionate about this. And he wants to expand it beyond just the topic that we're going to have today, but we'll start with that. So Dustin, please explain to us what we're going to be ending all of our podcasts with.
So this was a little bit inspired by something that Mudge had introduced me to in it was either the end of Clone Wars or the beginning of Rebels. But one thing I've been so passionate about, and just something that has been kind of expanded on in the greater universe that's not just canon, right, are the Sith Lords and how cool they are and some of the different powers that they have and what they strive for. And I always thought, man, wouldn't it be cool to see these guys fight each other? And I think, when we first started talking about this podcast, Mudge, is probably around March, right around March Madness, right? And I was like, we should put a bracket together on what it would look like if these Sith Lords fought each other. And we're going to include, your canon stuff and then also the expanded universe. And we're going to put together a bracket. And each week at the end of the podcast, we're going to put 2 Sith Lords against each other. And we're going to kind of go through their powers in a short, way to kind of do some research on it. And then just have us kind of figure out who we think would win. And there's 3 of us, so there's a clear majority there.
Okay.
And we're going to put them in a bracket and see who the last one standing is. And I am very, very excited about this because I love the hierarchy that Star Wars has introduced, right? The rule of 2, which is huge, Darth Bane.
Amazing.
But just to talk about this and just a cool concept and really want to thank the fact that they have these just amazing Sith Lords throughout. Nagasato and Darth Treya are going to be the first ones we're going to talk about.
Who are the 2?
So Nagasato was somebody I was introduced to in Knights of the Old Republic, and you get introduced to him by going to his tomb. And I want to remember the planet's name, but it's not going to come to me. But it was like Caravan or something, the Sith homeworld, and you go in the Valley of Kings, I think it was, and you go in this dude's tomb, and they kind of explain him. So very fascinated about that guy. And then Darth Treya, you get to meet also in Knights of the Old Republic, but in the flesh, so to speak, because she is one of the people you fight. So I just want to put those 2 together and we'll discuss based on their powers. And by the way, Nagasato was long gone by the time he was introduced in KOTOR. So kind of way before that. But
was that like 5,000 years before? Or?
It was quite a bit ago. So he was one of the first Sith Lords that you get introduced to.
Very cool.
And so, we're going to be doing that each week. And I would encourage the listeners to take a look at that. And we can even put a vote on our social medias and see where people land on that and see if we're right or wrong.
I like that.
We're probably wrong.
100%.
Oh, yeah, of course.
I like that.
Yeah.
Note to self, we will do a poll on the social media outlets. So we will get that going.
Well, I think if, while you're doing that, if you've got other ideas, we're going to do the Sith Lord bracket until we run out of Sith Lords. But then, there's always other brackets.
Ewok bracket challenge.
The Ewok droids.
Yeah, we were just as we were prepping for this podcast, we were just talking about who would win between a mouse droid and a gonk droid. So that could be a future one.
Remember that old show on Comedy Central, the battle bots?
Yeah.
They fight each other?
Oh yeah.
Yep. That would be cool, like maybe like an underground Star Wars thing where like people create these little bots as Star Wars.
Oh my gosh, that'd be fantastic. Sign me up. Awesome. Well, guys, this, dare I say, has been like a dream come true just to be able to talk about Star Wars in a forum that, obviously the listeners are going to be passionate one way or another about the topic. Obviously, we're passionate about it. And finally getting to a moment where we can bring this together, finally getting the equipment to do it, and just taking moments, which, we thought this was going to take 45 minutes, and how long has it been? That's how this topic can be. You just get going, or you start it and you just keep going. But it's
technically, you thought it was going to be 45 minutes. Dustin brought up over an hour, and you were like, "I don't know, guys. I don't know if we can do that." And I told you, I'm like, once you get going, you're going to cover 45 minutes just on your own, and that's because we're going to have to cut you off.
Well, like
we literally have. You can't see this because it's on video, and we're not going to have this in the first podcast. But we have a sign that says "Shut up, Mudge." So we knew it was going to happen, and we couldn't be happier because we love talking about it. And we hope you guys love listening.
We literally have like a script sheet that we wanted to base everything off of, and it says try for 45 minutes of content. I don't know if that's directed at me or anything or anyone else, but clearly we did not make that 45 minutes of content, but we, want to thank all the listeners to taking the time to looking us up and listening to what we have to say about Star Wars. Obviously, going forward, we're going to be interested into hearing what you also have to say about Star Wars and looking to dive deeper into more specifics on the content. And, like we said about the Star Wars universe, it can expand onto almost everything and anything. So thank you.
One last thing I want to say too,
Yeah.
before we close, is we are going to look at having guests on the podcast in
for
future
sure.
episodes, so we can get some differentiating opinions and bring in some people who also love the Star Wars universe as much as us. And, we're three friends, so we want to introduce a fourth wheel to this whole thing.
Yeah. And
We're gonna keep expanding the universe.
Yeah. And we have guests already lined up, and we have some big plans for what we want to do for this podcast, including, so Dustin is a twin and his brother owns a brewery in Kentucky called Mirror Twin Brewery. So,
and he will let you know that.
Derek, I'm already advertising for you.
It's called Mirror Twin Brewing.
Yep. Our plan is that we want to do one of our podcasts from his brewery and have him join as, a guest talker. So
We'll try to stay sober for at least 45 minutes.
no promises. No promises. But yeah, thank you so much, everyone. It's really been a pleasure coming together and talking about this. Any final words from the two of you?
I got nothing. I think we covered so much of it, and I can't wait to do the next episode.
I see Greg's brain just churning right now.
While people are putting, comments in about, the Sith Lord brackets, think to yourselves, what was Wilro Hood carrying? And whatever happened with R5D4?
Topics to be further discussed.
I'm just,
Cliffhanger.
I just want you guys to think about
a little bit of homework.
Shut up, Meg.
A little bit of homework for you. All right.
Well, again, thanks for joining us today. It's been an absolute blast. I cannot wait already for going for our second episode. From all of us, we really appreciate the time, and may the force be with you guys. All right.
And also with you.
Bye, guys.
Thanks for calling. This is Han Solo, and I'm going to be keeping you company for the next few hours right here on the Midnight Shift. Something's